Wow.
Wow, this is some really deep stuff.
I don't know what just happened, but something happened inside of me. Something snapped, something sick.
I wasn't expecting that either.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's all right. It's beautiful.
Monster is like really small, but it had to become that to stop me.
And then the hurt child became present when you mentioned it.
And I didn't realize this until now.
There were things that I didn't remember until now.
Funny, I haven't seen that before.
It feels like I'm the monster. I'm kind of seeing images of things, of a world where they can exist. This clarity brings all kinds of answers.
It's clear. She hugged me and then went back to her place, I guess, in my heart. Oh, it wants to come out. It wants to bippity boppity boop Cinderella me. She's melted into my chest. It's ooey gooey.
All week been finishing things, cleaning up more, started eating vegetables again last week. And it kind of just started happening. It's almost like I just finished going through a meditation session.
I feel light, when you hit that first joint, in the morning, and you.
I actually feel a lot more awake.
Hello.
Hi, James. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Still, I think last time I said this weird way of good, I think it's again the same.
All right. Well, let's give us plenty to talk about, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Okay.
I've been thinking about something I wanted to mention aside from asking me during the session if I see myself from third person or if I'm. So yeah, basically if there's a caretaker taking over or not, but I don't remember what else that was because I just noticed that the last few days. I guess I'll probably remember as we go along.
Okay. All right. Should we get started?
Yeah, sure.
I'll set a timer. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know we left off last time with a couple young parts playing together and a lot of other parts in the midst. Did you want to return to any of that or something else to explore today?
That's a very good question because right now, to be honest, nothing so specific came up, but because it makes, in my opinion, absolutely the most sense to go back to these parts. But before we go, now I remember what I wanted to mention earlier in regards to the session, but I guess it's probably related to the caretaker part because I noticed over the last few days that basically, even with IFS, I've been doing, how should I put it? It's not, because with spiritual practices, you would call it spiritual bypassing, but we've been doing a lot of bypassing still, while I still did progress, of course, in much better ways than ever in my life, and I'm really happy with that. But I noticed we did do some bypassing because during daytime, a lot of these, how should I put it? Because what I noticed in IFS sessions, basically when anxieties came up, we always asked them to step back instead of engaging them. And because of that, I don't know if that's part of IFS or just my regular repression of emotion. Because of that, I noticed that these anxieties, even though we have been working on causes of the anxieties, they still kept getting louder and louder and louder and louder. So I just figured it's time to start engaging them when they actually come up instead of asking them to step back in order to get to the part they're protecting me from. And
Makes
this
sense to
already
me.
changed a lot of, how should I put it, a lot of my relationship to anxieties just in the last few days. Of course, it's not like this light switch change, but
Right.
it's still already much better than, I don't know if ever, but probably much better than ever.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for bringing that to my attention. Yeah, it's a tricky one with anxiety because sometimes it's just kind of coursing through our veins a little bit and can be about anything. And other times it is a more of a part that needs to be addressed. So I'm glad you're picking up on that. And is that when you consider that? Do you consider that spiritual bypassing? Is that what you meant by that?
Ignoring these anxious, or not ignoring, but not paying proper, or how should I put it, not engaging these anxious parts. That's it feels similar to the spiritual bypassing other people do. I've done in the past with breathwork and so on.
Right. Got it. Okay. Can you conjure any of them now? And where do you notice them in or around the body?
Around the heart, there's a bit of a wall. It's much less, should put it, intense than usual, but it's like a wall. It's also smaller than usual because it's still in front of the heart, but like diagonally to the left. I would say it's probably taking up about 40% of like this circles, let's call it circle space or circular space.
Okay. And how are you feeling towards it?
So far, curious, because I can't really tell what kind of part or emotion that relates to, except for that I noticed that I'm feeling a bit cautious.
Okay. I wonder if that's the part is feeling cautious, or you're cautious about going to speak with it.
That's the part, because now, as you asked in more detail, I noticed a resistance coming from this wall.
Okay. Yeah, so let it know that you're curious about it and that it can speak to you in however way it wants. And just see what it wants you to know. Getting anything?
I guess that's a protector, because basically it voiced itself like, thank you, I'm proud of you, but not right now. I need my peace, basically.
Okay. Definitely don't want to push any parts. So wherever you want to go with it.
If then we should continue with these parts from last week. or if maybe parts that I started working on in solo work, because for these parts, for the first time, intuitively, I've built a safe room when I noticed that too many parts came in, I noticed that I can't take care of all of them at once, of course. So I would need to put at least some of them safely into a space to get back to them later.
Okay. I have a question that for this original anxious part. I know it wanted to be left alone, but I'm curious if it needs its peace right now, or if it feels like it doesn't ever want to be known by you.
That's a very good question, because now I'm a bit confused about this part, because it's been answering right now, because now that I started to pay attention to these anxieties more, that as it's for now still very draining to pay to allow these anxieties to be, to not repress them. Sorry. Because of that, basically, it wants me to save this energy, to not spend this energy, or to not get this energy flowing. So I guess there's, I don't know, some other protection mechanism. So yeah, I'm a bit confused about this.
Yeah, so would it be okay with this part if you came and checked back in on it later, another time?
It's sad, yeah, because it's not like we have a choice. You're gonna come back anyway. I have to laugh about it, because the irony due to before IFS, not really checking with any parts.
Right. Okay. So does that feel good for you?
Yes and no, because that's, how should I put it? I began to notice that I don't really know my boundaries at all, because apparently now it's getting more and more clear from my part that not just all parts, also at least in solo work, I've been overstepping boundaries without realizing.
Okay.
But it's not like they've been punishing me yet for overstepping boundaries or my own boundaries. But I just noticed it because the last few days, as these, basically as it switched to, it's not like we have a chance, we know we're going to come back anyway. Or similar responses to that.
Yeah. I was curious if that feels like a boundary violation to this part.
The reply was, to be honest, yeah, but how else do I start figuring out what my actual boundaries are? Instead of letting others constantly overstep my boundaries without realizing myself what my boundaries are. And therefore all this energy drain from that.
Okay, so the answer is that the way to figure out your boundaries in the external world is by pushing them in your internal world?
I wouldn't say pushing them in my internal world, but doing things that make me realize, or not doing, but realizing through these connections when I overstep a boundary that I've overstepped a boundary. So I know, okay, that's a boundary.
Okay.
So I won't need to overstep it again.
Yeah. And, parts will be here with you forever. So
That's true.
as far as if there's an agenda to get to them all or anything, there isn't really a hurry at this part.
Mhm.
If it doesn't want to be known right now, I know it said like, oh, you'll come back anyway, but that could be whenever feels right for you.
True.
So is there more you'd like to discuss with this part, or do you want to shift to the others?
Let's shift to the others.
Okay.
I guess if this won't be too boring for the podcast, I guess we're gonna be a bit more in the experimental, because it's similar to my realization about needing to engage anxiety. Also realized.
Can I just stop you at the boring for the podcast thing?
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just I wanted us to do good work, and I don't care about. I mean, it's I care, but it's not. It's a subset or not a priority to entertain anyone.
Huh, interesting. Because not, I mean, on your part, obviously. I just I have to say interesting because as I used to do this big podcast in Austria and Germany as well in the past, I just realized there's this part in me that, like, when we have this conversation, in part wants to entertain our listeners. Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't
no,
notice
fuck
that
'em.
until now.
This is for you. This is for me
Thank
to
you.
learn IFS, and it's for you to work with your parts.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not for entertainment.
Oh, but in regards to experimental, what I wanted to say was the realization that I had for engaging anxiety, I also had for engaging my anger, also the anger that's directed towards myself, because by now I'm confident enough with my parts that none of my parts actually wants to kill me. Unlike I had this massive fear in the past about parts actually wanted to kill me.
That's great. That's huge.
Thank you. So it's like let's say, for the lack of a friendlier wording, like opening the lid of the Pandora's box, like millimeter by millimeter.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I've been thinking about my boss basically, and I feel a lot of anger around my heart. But yeah, basically, actually, yeah, it would be really interesting, as we have still at least some time left, to try to engage this anger, because how should I put it? It's like we talked in previous episodes, it's like aimless anger. It's like trying to go everywhere because it doesn't know where to go. But it's like even more than, or more, let's say, mushy than aimless at the moment. Like I do hear it, I do feel it, but it's not vocalized into words yet. It's like more like garbling at the moment.
Okay. So there's anger around the heart. It comes up where it has something to do with your boss, or is triggered by that. But the anger feels aimless.
For now, yeah, because there's nothing concrete coming out of it yet. Although now, as we've been talking, basically came up insults as in "you piece of shit," like on repeat.
Okay. How are you feeling towards this part?
To be honest, now very curious, because I know I'll survive.
Let it know you're curious. And just see what it wants you to know.
Can you, because I notice it's going really fast at the moment, because also fear of this anger, now that it started to get more concrete, came into the situation. And I noticed myself basically in like a millisecond pace, flipping back and forth between self and whatever caretaker is trying to take over. So like, can you, in the silence that probably is going to follow now, remind me a few times to stay in self?
Remind you to stay in self?
Or like make me aware to stay in self. Remind me to make me aware, so we can decrease the switching.
I'm supposed to do that all the time. I mean, really, that's supposed to be the service I'm providing here. So I appreciate you calling attention to that. So, staying in self is an act of subtraction. Self is already there, and it's just a matter of getting other parts to step back. So you've noticed this other part, you've noticed the fear, and you can ask it what it wants you to know, or you can ask it to step back.
Now I had a very interesting thing, because I asked the caretaker instead to step back, or I start to engage this caretaker to be more phrase differently. And now that I engage this caretaker, it's like this very curious situation about me being able to handle the fear and the anger. It's like actually it's still in disbelief that I would be able to handle it, but it's in less disbelief than it used to, because I don't know if it's trying to charm me or something, but it's like it's noticeable that I'm different from just prior. So basically, we're like in the discussion. Yeah, we're in discussion now.
Yeah. You've mentioned the caretaker a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
What is the caretaker's role? How does it show up?
Basically, to ease the burden of emotions, or the burden. Yeah, exactly, because these emotions doesn't really matter if anxiety or anger, grief or something, because they, let's say, feel heavy like a burden on the shoulders.
Yeah.
To make it easier. Yeah, to make it easier to handle them.
And how does it do that?
Basically, it's been pushing me out of the body.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, but in difference to anxiety, anger, or other emotions, it's been pushing me out of the body in a, some would say, kind way, sneaky way, probably both.
Yeah. So the anxiety or the fear or the anger, they feel really heavy. The caretaker pushes you out of the body so that you're not experiencing too much of those sensations.
Exactly. Yeah, so basically, with the caretaker, seems like I'm still a bit more in the body than if other emotions or other parts would try to push me out, but I'm still being pushed out. So the caretaker takes most of the load.
Yeah. Sounds like a very important job it's doing. Keeping you from being overwhelmed.
Absolutely.
Just let it know you see that. And when we go to talk to any part, I mean, it's important that we're not getting overwhelmed. So there are ways that we can negotiate with those parts to kind of titrate or moderate how much they're giving us at once. And we have lots of tips and resources, ways to do that.
That's true.
So you can just let it know that. How is it now with the idea of you going to these other parts?
In general, much more open to it, but seems like as it's always been there for me these basically all my life, but in also very noticeable in IFS with this constant switching between self and this caretaker. But so basically it's a much more open, but basically seems like I need to engage it or have the opportunity to engage it first before then in self going to these parts. As basically up until today, I didn't engage this caretaker part at all.
Right. Yeah, good. You could ask it how old it thinks that you are.
Because of the changes of the last months, it can't really put a number on it, but it still thinks I'm a kid.
Right. And that would make sense, that it needs to work harder if you have fewer resources. So you can just update it on your real age.
I forget how dry the humor of my parts can be, because it was like good for you, but then you definitely got some work left.
Yeah.
Well, it's not wrong with that reply, but in the end, I noticed, I don't know if that's again a different part or something, but in the end, I'm proud of what we've been doing so far.
Good. You know, the updating parts on your age isn't just about saying, look, I'm in a superior position now, but it's also revealing to them that they are confused. They are thinking of you as a much younger part. So it's not that a 30-year-old is, going to be better at this than a 20-year-old. It's just that, if they think that you're a child, well, that's not true. And they're working too hard to protect something that they don't need to be protecting right now.
It asked a very good question on your last sentence, basically that if we don't need so much protection still, why do we still have to deal with so many issues? And then I asked back, what about using these situations now that I'm doing every day my best to connect so well to all of us? Why not you let the energy and the emotions flow and use this as learning opportunities? On that, it couldn't really give me a proper reply yet. But I do feel now that it's not in dismay, or maybe that's another part, because I noticed a bit of fear coming up again.
One reason there might be so many issues is there might be lots of parts that still view you as a child, for example.
Oh, that's for sure.
Working very hard to protect things that they don't need to work so hard to protect anymore. And yes, there are exiles unburdened. You mentioned some fear coming up.
Basically, it was like a belt around my chest, being strapped tighter around the heart.
Okay. And do you know what that's about?
It came immediately after I asked about, why not let energy and emotions flow and use it as a learning opportunity. So I guess it's about, let's say, letting myself go in that way and learn.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious how you mean letting energy and emotions flow.
As in, allow myself to feel whatever comes up and learn from it, instead of the automatic repression that's happening all the time.
Okay. Yeah. It might be helpful to think of it like a valve that you are able to control. And so, it's not black or white. Either we're not feeling our emotions or we're flooded with emotions. So I just want to put that out there as, you can take on some of the role that this caretaker has been doing of reducing the intensity of the emotions. You can negotiate that with the parts, and you can also just choose how deep you want to go with them.
A reply came from another part who doesn't believe at all that I could be in control.
Mm-hmm. And how do you respond to that?
In general, with curiosity, because I want to know why, and on the question of why it thinks that, the question came back like, how would we even start that?
Okay. And do you have a response for that?
To be honest, not yet.
Okay. I think you've demonstrated it a lot in our conversations.
To be honest, that's so fascinating, because that's also something that, gosh, it came up in those last 2 days since the last conversation as well. Because when it's about being kind to myself, or not just kind to myself, in general, being just with myself, for myself, somehow that doesn't get really into my awareness. That's, I don't know, it's being fought, pushed away, repressed, I don't know, but it's not really my awareness, to be honest. Because I was like shocked about lately, because some days ago, I also realized why people always used to love working out with me when I used to be a fitness trainer or doing breath work with me, because of being amazing in holding space for others when I can leave my vulnerabilities on the sideline, when it's not about me, when it's about the others.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, because I probably it's just not in my awareness right now, because in hindsight, when I listen to the episodes, I always realize about as well that I'm doing a good job, but there's something in me that doesn't accept it just yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's like or as soon as it's at once accepted, it's staying a bit in my awareness, but it loses, how should I put it, the value very quickly again. But though I gotta say, it's stacking up in value the more often I notice that I'm actually there for myself. If that makes any sense, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you're saying there for myself. I'm thinking simply being in self. Those might mean the same thing.
Actually,
when you access self energy, you're not overwhelmed by parts, and you're able to respond appropriately and quickly. And I think that you do that every time we talk.
Thank you. Because, now that you're saying it, just reflecting back on, I don't know, the first few conversations, we're the worlds apart.
I'm sorry, you don't know if the first few conversations what?
Just reflecting back on the first few conversations, how much I am in self these days compared to the first ones. Yeah, basically we're worlds apart, completely different.
Right. Yeah, so that's how you do it. So how's this fearful part responding? Is it listening to any of our chat here?
Basically, the fearful part from the beginning is gone, but basically with this caretaker, he didn't step back yet, but it's been more like, then now why not, let's say, look at the fear of the anger and at the anger both, like why not look at them together, like side by side. And to be honest, but actually, at least, I don't know why, but it feels nice.
I'm sorry, did you say the caretaker was suggesting that?
I was suggesting that.
Okay.
Like for, let's say, the next step or so, because as the caretaker doesn't want to step back yet, like why not do it together?
Okay. Sorry. So yeah, so you're calling the caretaker the fear of anger.
Sorry?
You were just saying that the caretaker is also the fear of anger.
No, that's a separate part. That's this part that's always in basically all of our conversations always been like taking over, like it's always been this back and forth between me and self and this caretaker.
Okay, so let me just make sure I'm following here. A moment ago, you said that you could visit the fear of anger and the anger at the same time.
Because basically we try to go to the...
And also that you'd like the caretaker can come along?
Exactly, yeah. As this caretaker has been taking over the connection or the communication with the anger and the fear of anger. and we, let's say, caught it in the act. And basically, I've been now talking with this caretaker part about, let's say, everything in regards to it, as it's always been trying to lessen the burden of these emotions.
Okay. So I have concerns that I will get lost in the amount of parts being juggled, and that I won't be able to help very much. I'm thinking back to our last conversation at the end of it.
True.
There were 2 exiles, and there were like 3 or 4 protectors all in the room at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I'm not saying that IFS can't be done that way, but it's hard for me to be of any assistance.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just putting that out there as a concern I have about going to talk to the fear of anger and the anger while we have the caretaker riding along.
Then let's stick with the caretaker for now, as that's in, let's say, the whole ordeal, probably the most important, I don't know if it's the most important part, but a very important one, as it's always been taking over so often from self.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So how does it like its job?
It likes being there for me.
Mm-hmm. And how does it like the other side, the actual work part? Does it feel like it's a lot of work?
Absolutely. It's a lot of work.
And what would it rather be doing with its energy inside of you if it didn't have to work so hard?
It can't imagine something different as of yet, because it feels like it's essential to our survival.
Right. Okay. And were you able to update it on your age? Is it seeing that and recognizing that?
Yeah, I was earlier updating it on the age, and basically it was like good for me, but I still have some work to go, so to say, or some work to do before I can be more in self, so to say.
Okay. Does it have any advice or direction that it thinks you should head in order to do that work? What would it like to see you do?
Basically, it's like continue connecting to myself as I did so far, but also it's been saying, to engage it more, and then we can see if I will be able to handle the exile that it actually is protecting me from through doing all this caretaking.
Okay. So it's saying that if you engage with it more, you'll learn more about how to care for the exile?
It means that then it will let me visit its exile, and when I will be able to handle that exile in self, then we can basically move from there on out.
Okay. And what would that look like for for you to engage more with this caretaker. Ask it how it would like you to do that.
Basically, listen to its story, listen to its pain, and then we'll see.
The story and the pain of the caretaker. How do you feel about doing that?
I'm very open to it.
Okay. Do you want to do some of that now? How's it going? Is it sharing any of that with you?
It started, but I'm a bit confused about it again because the story turned quickly angry. Can or are caretakers supposed to be angry?
You can check with it. If it's anger or if it's another part.
Seems like it's been carrying a lot of anger with it as well.
Yeah.
But not anger towards myself or something, but anger at everyone who was an influence in making it so overly caretaking or forced it into this overly caretaking
Right.
position.
Yeah.
Interesting. Seems like I guess this is a conversation of a lot of confusion. I'm learning a lot. Notice that I need to question a lot, or not question, but let's just say get to know myself better, because I realized now that I allowed it to express the anger as well. Suddenly it became much more direct, much more honest. Was asked again then in this anger if it if it's sure if it likes the job it needs to do or it is doing, and it was like, fuck no, of course I don't.
Right.
That was like
Right.
the most that was the most direct the part ever has been to me.
That's nice.
Oh yeah.
And you're able to handle it.
Thank you. True.
Right. You can handle when parts are real with you.
And yeah, with this, it's been noticing again, like it was like, okay, you really are changing. As in the part was like just said that to me because of being able to handle it.
Yeah. Is there more it wants to show you about its anger? Or kind of negotiate with you about continuing to work with it?
It wants to continue next week when during our next conversation.
Yes.
And up until then, it wants to go inside the amazing safe house I built this weekend during a solo work IFS session.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anything else that it needs or wants from you, or anything else you want to negotiate with it?
Not really. It just was like, the only thing it said before basically entering the house and slamming the door was like, as every day is different and we always blend to some extent during the day anyway. If I need to blend, I will blend anyway. It's not like I have a choice, it said. But I don't plan to come back until, our conversation next week.
Okay. I'm curious, going back to something we talked about a little while ago.
Mm-hmm.
When we were talking about, when you had mentioned going to these two parts, the anger and the fear of anger, and maybe caretaker come along, and I suggested that would, just let you know that would be difficult for me to follow. How do you feel about your decision in sticking with this caretaker?
Very good, because it makes the most sense. Because of course, I just need to, in the end, I need to engage all emotions. But when there's caretakers not allowing me to be in self as much as I'd like to, it makes more sense to actually get to notice caretakers, of course.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I think that was a good move. Just wanted to get your feedback on that.
And so I have to thank you for this. Was it would you call it a suggestion? I'm not sure right now. My brain's a bit mushy.
I hear the thanks. And thank you for your time today.
Well, I have to thank you again. And then, as usual, have a great evening and talk to you next week.
Okay. See you then.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Do you want to help bring more self-energy to the world? If you'd like to participate in calls or help out with this project in any way, I'd love to hear your ideas. Join the Discord server or contact me at james@liveifs.com. A huge thanks to our audio engineer, Yvonne, for your care and diligence in editing the calls. To every caller for your courage in sharing some of your parts. And to anyone out there getting to know their internal system, keep going. Who knows, that might be the most selfless, helpful thing you can do for others, and you're the only one who can do it. If you'd like to see us reach the largest audience, we must please the almighty suggestion algorithms at iTunes and YouTube. And they don't care about the power of IFS. They're looking for likes and shares and comments, and the sooner the better. Follow the links in the show notes right here in your podcast player to make your wishes known. And now, a minute of meditation. Or if you prefer, pull over. You can do it in 60 seconds. Just click one of those links. They're right there, and give us a like or a 5-star rating. It would really help. If you think this project is helping people, you're helping people by sharing it. Thank you.